this is A-Star Reads, and it's time for a Sunday sum up. So I wasn't sure how this week was going to go because I had a lot going on with school, and it was actually not a very, very good week. A lot of things happened with work, and my schedule with school and work had become incredibly unmanageable this week. It was really it was a rough week. And I ended up having to drop my math class, which upset me to no end, but it is what it is. And I'm able to put it in my schedule for the fall, and that's just what's gonna have to happen. So it was a good week in the way that it resolved in the end, but it was not a good week at the beginning of it. So my reading, of course, nothing much happened. I was able to finish 2 books though, and I will be giving you reviews for those. And aside from that, I was really just trying to make sure I was prepared with all my schoolwork to start the 48-hour readathon this weekend, which I'm really excited about. It's going on. We've started it. We're already at prompt 2, and I'm really excited about continuing on with this because it's just been so much fun. At the end of this past week, it was really nice to spend time with friends and just read for fun and not have to stress about anything. So that's kind of where things are at in the week. Because I'm not going to have the opportunity to do a TBR this month, I'm going to be doing Magda Spins in this video, and then I'm going to be doing the viewer prompt roll for the Game of Bookish Life for the May prompt, because I still want you to be able to pick a book based off the viewer prompt roll this month in May. And so I will be doing those 2 things as well as my 2 book reviews. I've got a very tiny haul that I'd like to share with you. As far as what I'm currently reading, I did pick up Split Infinity and read like 10 pages of it. So I didn't get very much further in that one, but that's the one I would like to actively work on next of the ones I'm trying to finish. And that is my Aurelium Gear Up Conduit. That's for my Bone Conduit. I need to finish that in order to get my Bone Conduit. So I did end up starting my Aurelium Spring Equinox. You know, I know that I said I was gonna wait until I finished with my Bone Conduit, but you know, I didn't have all my supplies before school started, and I had to start class. So my teacher is giving me an exception. They're hoping that I get my Bone Conduit made because I do need it for Conjuration. And I did start Conjuration, which is Wilder Lord the Weeping Tide. This is a book with healers in it. Nope, it's a book with a source of light on the cover. But The Weeping Tide was the book for my first prompt of the 48-hour readathon. I've made it 100 pages, which means that I don't have to take a punishment. But I will have to take 1 punishment for the month of April for my TBR game because I did not read 100 pages of Whispers at Moonrise by C.C. Hunter. I did finish Beneath the Sugar Sky. I've read at least 100 pages of Les Miserables, and I have started and read 100 pages of Weeping Tide. So at least I did the other 3. So that's actually pretty good considering April was a month where I just didn't do much reading. And then because I listened to Beneath the Sugar Sky as an audiobook, I actually have now picked up a new audiobook. It's called The Life We Bury by Alan Eskins. I have heard this is an amazing audiobook and that people may not have liked the book quite as much as they loved the audiobook. You know, like the narration was so good. This is about a young guy. He's a college student and he's got a lot of rough things going on in his life. His mother's an alcoholic. There's a lot of difficulty with that. One of the classes he's taking is a biography class, and for his class, one of his big projects is that he has to go interview somebody who is a lot older and has a lot of life experience and tell that story. So he has gone to this nursing home to try and see if he can find someone to interview there. And the people at the nursing home say, hey, why don't you interview this guy? And it turns out this guy is a murderer, and he's been charged of raping and murdering a 14-year-old girl. And like way back in the day, but now he's dying of pancreatic cancer. So he's there at this nursing home. He's been like in prison for 30 years. And I'm guessing there's going to be a bit of a story to this, or maybe a different story that this guy has to share because it's called The Life We Bury. So obviously this guy has some things to say. And I don't know, we haven't actually met that character yet, but this is who they're trying to set this boy up to interview. So that's kind of rude of the nursing home people, but we'll see what happens. It sounds interesting and it sounds hard-hitting, it sounds difficult, but I kind of just felt like I was in the mood for this type of book right now. So we'll see how that goes, and that's pretty much it for where I am with my reading. I'm gonna have started a few other books this weekend because I have different books that I'll be picking up for each prompt, but I will talk about that more in a vlog that I'm doing for my 48-hour readathon. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully that'll get up not too late in the week. And if you missed all of that and would like to go back and actually participate in the 48-hour readathon at your own time, I will link all the information you need down in the description box below. All right, so April 24th, and I have finally finished my 6th book of the month, and that is The Neverending Story by Michael Ende. This is a book that I started in March, and it's for my Magical Aurelium Gear Up. This one was specifically for my legacy, and that I'm going to be pledging my allegiance to the god of Valinus in the Archivists Guild, so I finally finished it. I'm still not done with my Gear Up completely because I have to finish Split Infinity, but that's the next book I'm going to be working on because I would like to start the actual spring equinox, but you know, I have until August. I'm not going to stress too much. So let's talk about The Neverending Story because this was a book that I was really looking forward to. I felt like this would bring a lot of nostalgic vibes, and surprisingly, it didn't. So I'm going to give this book a 3.5 stars, and honestly, throughout the majority of the book, I was thinking more like 3.25 stars, but I felt like the ending pulled it in and brought it to like a solid 3.5, which to me is right in the middle. So I did enjoy this. There were a lot of things that maybe because of my own expectations, it wasn't quite what I wanted from this. So the first half of the book, even actually less than half of the book, is the first movie, The Neverending Story. So, you know, they obviously based the movies, the adaptations are based off this book. What I felt like they did so well in the movies was capture those emotional impacts, those scenes, and spread them out so that they actually are longer. They have a little more depth. We actually get a lot more character development, I think, in the movie, in the sense that we form a stronger connection to the characters in the movie. This book goes from one thing to the next so quickly that I really had a hard time investing in particular scenes that meant a lot to me in the movie. So it was interesting because there were some scenes, and you know them, the scenes that make everybody cry, that I kind of just I went through it, no emotional feelings at all within the book because there just was no buildup. And I didn't have any strong connections to the characters, including Atreyu, who in the movie was a character that touched me very deeply. So it was like a little strange because you're meant to love Atreyu, you're meant to love these characters. Even Falkor wasn't that likable. He wasn't horrible, but he wasn't as whimsical and charming and wonderful, I felt, for me, as in the movie. And then the second half of the book was a completely different tone. It was very interesting because we are getting a lot more of Bastian in that part. So it's really all about Bastian in the second half. And I didn't like a lot of the choices Bastian made. Understandably, when you're allowed to do anything you could possibly want to do, especially as a child, you're probably going to make choices that are not great. And I feel like maybe at one point Bastian sort of had to come to terms with some of the things he said and did throughout his life within Fantastica, but not enough. Like I felt like there were some really awful moments, some awful character moments in this where he wasn't really learning from the horrible things he was doing and saying, the ways he was treating people. And I felt like that was a miss. And so I'm finding that with some of these older fantasy, middle grade YA fantasy books like this, or like the Book of Three for the Prydain Chronicles or Chronicles of Prydain, these ones that I have read, that I have enjoyed, but I feel like I'm giving them middle of the road reviews, is because they don't have enough character development and emotional impact. And that's something that I'm finding is more of a trend for newer middle grade fantasies. You get to know the characters a lot more. You get to see the emotional impact of these children and the things they're going through so much more. And I feel like that is completely different to the way that some of these older fantasies were treated. They were more treated with the concept of the adventure themselves and not the impact the adventures had on these people. And granted, you do get a little bit of what Bastian's thoughts and feelings are, or what the other characters are feeling or thinking, but not quite as much. And I think where I really struggled with this was how quickly we went through the story. And this reminds me of, and it doesn't remind me of City of Bones at all, but it reminds me of my criticism of City of Bones in that there were so many ideas in this book that you're basically going from one idea to the next so quickly that there's no actual development of the scenes that much. I mean, there were definitely a few scenes that I thought were really good and they developed them well. But for the most part, it's like one adventure to the next, one new idea to the next, and not enough focus on the individual ideas. And I think if you had just taken out half of this and expanded on those scenes or those events more, then I definitely would have rated this higher. I can see how this would be very nostalgic, especially for people who actually read the book in their youth. And I get that there's probably a lot lost on me because I'm reading this as an adult and because I loved the movie so much. And this I didn't enjoy as much as the movie because I liked some of the things that the adaptation did, which I feel like were good choices because they made the story a lot more emotional for me and I was a lot more invested. A lot of really cool ideas. The writing style was really nice. I liked how whimsical it was. I liked that Ende is so creative. And I think that the details and the characters were so interesting, as well as the creation of all these different kinds of creatures in this fantastical world. Like there were so many things about this that were really good. Okay, so the 27th of April, and I have finished my 7th book of the month, which is pretty good considering I have barely read anything this month. I really have not been doing a great job reading, and I've still finished 7, and the month is not over yet. I ended up reading Beneath the Sugar Sky by Seanan McGuire. This is the 3rd book in the Home for Wayward Children series. It was so good. I'm going to give it a 4.5 stars. I know that this is one of the ones that was rated not quite as highly as some of the other ones, but I loved it. I really liked the nonsensical elements to this one. I thought it was really interesting where they went to. I liked the characters a lot. I really liked the characters a lot, actually, which I can't say was true as much for the first book. In the first book, we're mostly following Nancy, and she just wasn't one of my favorite characters of the characters we've been meeting. And so I enjoyed Cora. She was kind of where the story put a lot of its focus was on Cora, and I really liked her. I also liked the plus size representation. Not necessarily that there was a lot of positive things happening, but there were things that I think as a plus size person, we tend to have to face or think about, and some of the things that we struggle through. And of course, that's generalizing. That's not true for everybody, but that's been true for me. There were questions and thoughts and things that Cora brought up that I was like, oh yeah, I've definitely faced that. And I liked the representation. I thought it actually did a good job. And then of course, the whimsy of this world that is made out of sweets and desserts and stuff like that. I loved that. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And the story itself was quirky, but this one was one of the more lighthearted ones compared to some of the other ones. So at least the ones I've read so far. At this point, I would compare this. I'd say this was a 4.5 stars, and I would compare it with Down Among the Sticks and Bones as far as I liked these two equally. I really, really liked both of these books. And of course, Every Heart a Doorway is my least favorite so far. That's the first one, and that was the one I gave 3.75 stars because I think it was Nancy. I think I just didn't get along with her quite as well. And maybe going back and rereading it, now that I've read these ones, I might enjoy it a little bit more. But I really felt that Seanan McGuire got a chance to use some of their creativity in this one because I love seeing that creativity. I love seeing these ideas where you're thinking like, what is this author thinking? Or how did they come up with this? I really love the strangeness and the uniqueness of these stories. I think it's very clever and fun and nuanced and detailed, but not too detailed. Like the description is really nice and it adds to the whimsy, but it's not hugely detailed, which I think is important because these are novellas. So you need to be able to have a full story that comes all the way through and makes you feel like you're connecting with the characters within the one story, especially if it's a short one. And I thought this one did a great job for that. So I highly recommend the Wayward Children series if you're interested in fantasy that's a little strange, but very whimsical. And if you don't love the first book, it's like perfect time for filming. All these huge giant trucks are going by right now. I will say that if you did not like Every Heart a Doorway in particular, don't necessarily stop there, you know, because I don't think that that first book is a representative for the whole series. You know, a lot of these books actually work as standalones well enough. And even if they don't, I think that you will get a different vibe from each book. Because this book, Beneath the Sugar Sky, is a completely different vibe than Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which was also a very different vibe from Every Heart a Doorway. So just know that each book is very unique in the way that it's written. I mean, it's still Seanan McGuire's writing style, but it's unique in the tone that it will give you. So if you didn't like the tone of the first book or you didn't like the tone of the second book, the third one is completely different. All right, so it's time for the viewer prompt, and you guys ended up on career card here with Doctor. So because of my new rule, you no longer are stuck there, so you're gonna get to make forward progress. So let's see where you're gonna go. 9, nice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Koi cup or challenge. That's weird. Okay, so how do we do that for you? Now what I think this should be is that you should take your top 10 books that you want to read the most. We'll go with Koi Cup. Do a random number generator, whatever book comes out, that's the book that you get to read. I will pull a Koi Cup pick for you because it's an option if you want to read it, but this really can be about your own TBR, randomly generating one of the books that you most want to read, because the Koi Cups are the ones that they're the easiest books to read or they're ones I'm really anticipating. But let's actually pick a Koi Cup for you and see if you want to read one of my Koi Cup choices. The Poppy War. Okay, so you have an option of reading The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, and if this one does not appeal to you or you've already read it, go ahead and randomly generate one of the top 10 books on your TBR you're most looking forward to reading. So let's talk about a couple of gifts that I got this week, which is really exciting. I got these from Christine, who's the autistic reader on BookTube, and I will link all her information down below. You should definitely check out her channel. She does a lot of single reviews, and it's wonderful. It's great to see all these different books that she's reading, and I really like her TBR game. It's super cute. It's all about kitties. First, she sent Mom a book. It's called The Do-Over by Bethany Turner. Christine's message said, "For Mama A-Star, this author is local to Cortez, Colorado. I picked up a copy for myself. Sounds interesting. Wanted to get a little something for you just because." From Christine. So that's for Mama.
Thank you so much, Christine. I can't wait to read it, and I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Christine sent me the third book in the Brown Sister trilogy. I haven't actually read any of these yet, but now I have all three of them, so I really don't have any excuse. I need to read these books. And this is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. Christine says, "Amy, I love the autism rep in this. There's a scene about socks that I totally relate to, and that made me laugh. Congratulations on 1,000 subscribers. You deserve it." From Christine. So thank you so much, Christine. I'm really excited to get to this series. I'm glad to hear that the autism rep is really good in this. I have heard the representation is really good in this series in general. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to let you know how I feel about it, because I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I have a feeling I'm going to love this series. When we last left Magda, she was on the spinner genre wheel, and that's like right at the end. So let's see what she has as far as tallies. If we roll a 7 or a 9, Magda's in trouble because there's 4 tallies on each of those. Then there's 3 tallies on number 4 and number 10, so there's potential there to get more books. And then there's 2 tallies on 3 and 8, and then a tally each on 1 and 2. So let's see where we're gonna go with spin number 1. 1. We're just delaying the inevitable. She's going to win. Okay, so this is a spinner wheel and it's diversity rep, and for 1, the diversity is an Indigenous author. So any book by an Indigenous author, that's a great one. All right, let's see if she's gonna finish the game for spin number 2. Yes, she's gonna finish the game. And there we are at the end. She is safe with a 6. So the way this last spot works is if I roll a 1 through 5, she's going to be able to read her most anticipated book. If I roll a 6 through a 10, she has to read a book that was recommended by a library recommend list, or go to her local library online and see what kind of books the librarians are recommending. So let's see what she's going to get. She got a 4, so she gets to pick her most anticipated book. So Magda, for this spin number 2, you get to pick your most anticipated book, and we're going to start the game over again. As we know, at the beginning we have to decide whether or not she's going to college or career, and if she's going to a career, she gets +1 book at the very beginning because she picks her career the second she starts. So let's see, 1 through 5, she's going to college, 6 through 10, she's starting a career. 6, you just barely made it, Magda. Okay, you're starting a career, and we're gonna pick a career card. What kind of career, Magda, do you want to have for this new life? How about that one? A superstar. Oh, I can see that. I can see that, Magda. You're gonna be a superstar. So for this prompt, Magda has to pick a book that's based off a superstar or something having to do with the entertainment industry. It can be any kind of entertainment industry. I don't think it just has to be music superstar. I think it could also work for movie or something along those lines. So of course, Magda will let us know in the comment section down below what book she felt represented superstar really well. All right, so now we're up to 6 spins. So let's go with spin number 4. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Winter vibes or setting. So it needs to be a book that has winter vibes or setting. So like a polar fantasy or just a horror book set in the winter time. I know this is not the season for it, but it needs to have winter vibes or setting. And that was, oh no, I didn't even notice. That was a 7, Magda. So that's a +1. Oh dear. Okay, well now you got 7 spins. Spin number 5. 10. 10's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we're at book about love, romance, or prominent relationship. So that puts another tally on 10, which means if we roll another 10, that's another spin. So that's nice because this could be a romance or any type of book that you want to read that has an element of love, romance, or prominent relationship within the story, Magda. So for our rules for the stop sign, if I roll a 1 or a 10, well, for one, if I roll a 10, you get an extra spin anyways, but that also means we'd be stuck at the stop sign one more time. Okay, so I want to take a quick second and talk about my new stop sign rule because I did not end up doing a TBR video this month. I got so many opinions in the video with all your votes, which I loved. Thank you so much for giving me suggestions, but also voting on A or B. And what I've decided to do, because some of the suggestions were pretty interesting, and it wasn't, definitely not an even split, but there were a lot of people for A and a lot of people for B. I decided that when it comes to stop signs, I have to stop, and the next roll, if I land on a 1 or a 10, those are the two numbers, 1 or a 10, then I have to stop another time, just one other time. It's not gonna be stuck there 20 million times. It's gonna be a second time stuck at the stop sign. But if I land on a 2 through 9 at that stop sign, then I can move forward. So I thought that was a fun idea, and it also limited the amount of times that I could get stuck at the stop sign because I'm still only gonna be stuck there once. That's my new rule, and that's what it's gonna be going forward, and hopefully this adds still a little bit of the fun of the stop signs, but not too much that is overwhelming and I'm stuck at the stop sign the whole game. Spin number 6. You're not stuck at all. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Buy a new book. Genre. And that would be a classic. Well, Magda, I don't know if you want to buy a new book or how you want to handle this one, but typically this would mean that I would buy a new book that has to do with this genre. And in this case, it is a classic. So you could just pick up a classic. And what is very likely, but not necessarily, the very last spin, spin number 7. Let's see what's going to happen. Oops. Nope, that's not the last spin. All right, 9. That puts an extra tally on 9. So Magda has 8 spins. I knew this was going to happen at some point, Magda. You were starting to stack them up. This is the time. This is the time. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. TBR game. So the way the TBR game works is that you would check out somebody else's, another booktuber's TBR game video, and you'd pick a prompt from their game or a book that they're planning on reading. So for example, you could go check out Paige's current TBR game video and pick a prompt or book from her list, or from any of the many other TBR games that we absolutely love. Go ahead and pick a book from somebody else's TBR. Now, I'm gonna try and not jinx it again. So we're just gonna go with spin number 8. And if I hit a 1 or a 10, Magda's stuck at this stop sign. But let's see if that happens. Oh! No, Magda! Oh no! Well, that means you have 5 tallies for 10 as well. All right, this is exciting. +1 books. And you're stuck. So that's another TBR game. So you're gonna have to go look at somebody else's TBR game and pick either a book or a prompt from their current TBR game video. And wow, okay, Magda. The good news is you can't be stuck at the stop sign again. Bad news is you have an extra spin. So we're on spin number 9. And we're gonna see how that's gonna go. Let's see with spin number 9. 2, okay, 2's good. 1, 2, Google Earth. Oh, that is an interesting one. So there's this application called Google Earth that I like. There's this one thing on Google Earth that's I'm feeling lucky. And when you click on it, it randomly takes you to a place in the world. And so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna Google Earth, a random place in the world, and you have to pick a book that is either from the country where it shows up, that area where it shows up, maybe the author is from that area. It's usually like a famous place. Something about that inspires you to pick a book. It's a very strange prompt, but I thought it sounded like a lot of fun. But that is the last spin. You don't have any more spins, 9 spins total. This was an interesting round, Magda. This is a very interesting round. Okay, let's see how lucky we're feeling. Guajira Peninsula, which is in South America. Colombia, okay. And it looks like a desert. Very desert-like. So it could be set in South America, Colombia specifically. It's next to the ocean. So desert, ocean, these are all things that I would say would work. There was a historic dispute between Venezuela and Colombia in 1891 about the land. So it could be like who owned the land. So it could be like political, a political based, two different countries fighting against each other for something. It's very possible. Let's see. The scenery is very picturesque with wide desert plains and green foggy mountains. So that is something to keep in mind. So you could pull your inspiration from that. And it looks like the temperatures are very high there, which makes sense if it's a desert. So let's see, what else is there to look at? Trade winds. Missionary history. So the mission of Guajira was carried out since the 1880s by the friars, Capuchin friars. So it could be something with some Catholic missionary theme to it also, Magda. There's a lot of options here. So basically just use this place to give you inspiration to pick a book. All right, so that's everything that's happened in the past week. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. And I am sorry that I couldn't do a TBR. But hopefully you can participate in the viewer prompt and let me know in the comment section down below what book you ended up choosing for the viewer prompt. And if you went with the actual viewer prompt book, let me know that as well, because I'm curious how it's going to go for you. And then also, if you're not taking part in the viewer prompt, let me know in the comment section down below what was the best book you read this past week, or what was the worst book you read. What should we avoid? If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see what happens next week. I'm hoping it'll be a much smoother week, and I'm hoping I'll get some more read. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you later.